Rimworld's new Odyssey DLC is here, and with it comes a new starting scenario. To add a bit of spice to the challenge, I've edited the scenario slightly to make it just a tad more difficult for myself. Allow me to set the stage. A grav ship sits docked at an orbital relay. As the crew begins to salvage the equipment, they realize something. This isn't ancient human tech. It's a mechanoid beacon. The relay crackles to life and broadcasts its war alert to a distant mech hive. The crew are being hunted. No matter where they go or what they do, they will be found. As the two pilots ponder their next steps, they hear gunfire and screams coming from the relay. The mechanoids have found them. The co-pilot steps out onto the relay in search of their friend, only to be greeted with the face of death. In mere seconds, 2 of the 3 crew members have been slaughtered, leaving 1 terrified pilot. As the mechanoids surround the grav ship, our pilot abandons his 2 friends and rockets toward the unexplored planet's surface below. This is Brick Tamland. People seem to like him because he is polite and rarely late. He likes to eat ice cream, and he really enjoys a nice pair of slacks. Years later, a doctor will tell him that he has an IQ of 48, and he's what some people call
mentally retarded.
With nothing more than the clothes on his back, a sick-ass grav ship, and the ability to name every steam engine ever produced, he'll have to learn how to survive on his own, while being hunted by savage mechanoids. Brick landed in a temperate forest on the 1st of September, 5500. The grav engine had overheated on the landing, meaning he was now stuck here for the next 10 days. Thankfully, there's enough supplies in the grav ship to last a few weeks, so as long as the mechanoids don't track him down here, Brick will be relatively safe. Thankfully, the grav ship is practically a flying house, so all Brick needs to do is build a bed and drift off into nothingness in an attempt to repress today's events. After waking up the following morning, Brick Tamland got to work repairing the ship. It had taken a beating from the mech swarm on the relay station, making it incredibly dangerous to fly. Now with the ship fully repaired, I set Brick to begin disassembling all of these steel structures around the landing zone. We need construction level 4 to craft a biofuel refiner so that we can keep the grav ship functioning, and since Brick's only at level 2, we've got our work cut out for us. Day 3 was practically the exact same schedule-wise. Brick hit construction level 3, and to end the day, a wild Steven came wandering in to check out the spacecraft. Even though he had nothing of value to sell, I'm sure Brick still appreciated the company. So what happened on day 4? Well, Brick did battle with a bird, like you do, before hitting construction level 4. So, now that we've just spent the last 4 days doing nothing but disassembling shit, it's time to actually build the damn thing. Only to be reminded that it needs power. Guess this is gonna end up turning into a mini outpost after all. While Brick got to work building out power conduits and a generator, a random pawn tried to pull off a Red Bull stunt and found themselves bleeding out just a few yards away. What followed was an intense medical procedure using devices known as band-aids to tend to Ayani's wounds. Very advanced medical terminology, I know. They don't just give that skill set out to everyone. With Ayani stable and recovering, Brick finished building the generator for the biofuel refiner and turned in for the night. The next morning, I received a new quest titled Mechanoid Relay. So what's happening here is there are these relay stations up in the clouds, right? And the mechanoids are trying to power those to make a massive mech hive mind communication net. The objective is to disassemble those relays to prevent the plot of the Terminator movies from taking place. It's actually what we were doing at the start of the playthrough, only to lose 2 men in the blink of an eye. If Brick doesn't do anything though, the mechs will continue snowballing and eventually take over the world of Rim. Before we get to that point though, we'll need more supplies, better gear, and above all else, a crew. The best way to build said crew? Slavery, of course. We can just use the raids to gather up prisoners and then lock them in a room with a laptop and like a 24-hour compilation of InfoWars. And they'll be ours by morning. Of course, for this plan to work, you need to actually win the fight against the raiders. As all hope seemed lost though, fucking Patton Oswalt appeared and gunned down the pirate trying to take poor Brick Tamlin off to an island of a certain Steen variety. Also, shout out Aoni for joining the group and at least making an attempt to rescue Brick, even though she didn't even make it out of the ship. To top it all off, as the Parks and Rec gerrymanderer carried Brick to the grav ship, I was prompted to make a name for the faction, because that's the most pressing matter at the moment, clearly. Thankfully, Patton was able to stabilize Brick inside the grav ship before heading back out and stabilizing Sarez, the pirate, while Aoni began building out some walls around a set of ruins to turn into a prison. So in the span of one day, we've tripled the colony and added a prisoner, which means it's time for some expansion. Using some of the gravlite panels and steel from the ship's storage, we began placing blueprints for a 6x10 expansion onto the right portion of the ship. With the blueprints placed, construction officially began on day 8. Naturally, our new home needs a new name. And I couldn't think of a better one than my current Helldiver ship, so welcome to our new home, the Wings of Redemption.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
It even comes equipped with a 30 banquet pot pie meals and a free trial to an anger management seminar. With our ship size effectively doubled, we now have room for our sleeping quarters, which should hopefully boost morale now that everyone has a bed instead of being forced to sleep on a bloody floor of the Redemption. Now that we've got the expansion completed, everyone's recovering, and we're making progress on the prisoner, all that's left to do is continue stockpiling chem fuel, which means spending several days chopping trees to stockpile wood to convert into chem fuel. Now while waiting for the prisoner to be ready to recruit, I also used more of our gravlite paneling to begin working on a small kitchen for the ship. Oh, and a small prison cell as well, which is more of a Harry Potter closet-sized bedroom, but don't question it. The Geneva suggestions haven't even been invented here, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. You know what? If she didn't want to be locked up like that, maybe Sarez shouldn't be trying to break out every 5 seconds and she wouldn't be in this situation. Finally, after spending almost 2 weeks recovering, we're ready to launch the grav ship. Sure, we only have an expected quality of 25%, with a 63% chance of damaging the ship while landing, but that's what you get with Brick Tamlin in the pilot seat. Now this isn't some late game super advanced grav ship, clearly. We can only jump about 20 tiles at a time right now, but that's still enough to land us in a new forest biome, which gives us the ability to do things like hunt caribou, shout out Hugh Neutron, plant some rice and fertile lands, and continue to build out our ship some more. It couldn't have come at a better time, too, considering we're officially out of survival meals. And thus, we got to work. Patton finished our grav ship kitchen, Aoni dismantled some ruins to round up more steel, and Brick cleared the fertile lands to begin planting rice so that everyone could eat. Since everyone is now starving to death, though, it's time to hunt some caribou. Patton is the only member of the crew who can use a firearm even somewhat effectively. So, equipped with his revolver, I sent him out to do his best Danny DeVito impression and save our crew from starvation. That evening, while Brick went for a sad walk along the map border, another pirate raid triggered. Originally, I was expecting to have Patton and Aoni throw down against this bum, but shout out Donkey for just tanking. In return, I traded with the lady for 3 medicine. After trading with Donkey, she gives us another quest, telling the crew about an ancient garrison nearby. These are new POIs with the Odyssey DLC. Are we readily equipped to investigate the location? Probably not. Are we gonna go anyway?
You bet your sweet bippy!
That being said, we've gotta wait a few more days for our ship to be ready to launch. So until then, I just focused on securing more food for the crew. It allows us to get Sarez up to speed now that she's had the intricacies of the 5G rainbow water explained to her. Over the next 2 days, the focus stayed on improving the crew's situation. For starters, Patton was sent out hunting while Ayani bulk prepared simple meals for the 4 members. Brick continued planting and tending to the rice fields, and we finally got Sarez some clothing to remove her -6 mood debuff for being naked. We also placed blueprints for additional ship expansions, with the goal being to add a research and production room. This will allow us to place a production room within the ship that can be kept available for us to place workbenches, chem fuel refineries, and simple research benches, all within the confines of the ship. I will say, it is very nice to have someone with the ability to mine a vein without it taking an entire day. Sarez only has mining level 4, but it's still exponentially better than Brick's mining 0. It should go without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You need a shit ton of steel to turn a grav ship into your primary base. We're talking 4 steel per substructure tile, and then another 7 per hull tile. So for a 5-tile wall, you need 55 steel. A room is 4 walls, so 220 steel just to make the walls for the room, excluding the 20 to 30 tiles of flooring that all cost 4 steel as well. What I'm trying to say is, you need someone who likes to mine if you expect to get anywhere. Either that, or you can pull off a ton of raids and steal it. See what I did there? I'll see myself out. Admittedly, it's been a while since I've played Rimworld, and I completely forgot that animals like Muffalo can, fight back. And oh boy, did they take it to the extreme. Like they really fought back. One even broke into the wings of redemption. It was a true battle for the ages, and by the end of the day, our crew emerged victorious, though not without injuries. And by that, I mean we spent all day 21 recovering while Patton walked around in a state of shock. Not everyone was bitch-made though. Brick simply proclaimed that he was built different and then proceeded to botch 75% of the rice harvest. What a man. This continued into days 22, 23, and 24, with Sarez mining up the remaining steel, Brick harvesting the rice, and Ayani cooking up more simple meals. What was Patton up to? More burning bush hunting. No, I'm just kidding. He actually finished up the production room. Alright, the crops have been harvested, the food has been cooked, the ship has been expanded. It's time to fly back the way we came to get as close to the garrison as possible. Upon landing, Brick crafted 3 sleeping bags before the entire group set off on their journey to reach the garrison. Welcome to the compound. It's surrounded by ancient cannons and turrets. Since I wasn't quite sure if they were active or not, I just sent Sarez in first, and lo and behold, they're duds. Entering the first room reveals some operating tables and 3 crypto sleep caskets, along with a dead body rotting away in the corner. The crew attempted to open the caskets, only to be ambushed by ancient soldiers. While 2 were killed, their leader, Marcus, survived. Well, for like 30 seconds. While we continued searching the garrison, a random pirate raid triggered here, sending a naked lunatic sprinting towards the building. Upon entering the southwestern room, though, he was immediately riddled with bullets, causing him to try the other doorway, where he was immediately riddled with bullets. At least now we know there's at least one more fighter hiding out here. And we know where they are. Anyway, one thing I really love about these compounds is the fact that you can find these loot crates in the abandoned rooms that contain items such as steel, components, and survival meals. As we pushed into the final 2 rooms, we were greeted with more loot crates and some firearms in the armory, but no hostiles. Which then begs the question, who the fuck was that guy fighting? Anyway, we're able to collect most of the gear, just not all the steel lying around, but at least it's better than nothing. We can always mine more steel. I'll take an LMG combat shotgun and an M16 over 50 extra steel any day. There's no time to focus on that at the moment though, because the caravan was immediately ambushed by fucking birds. Never change, Rimworld. Never change. Of course, after clearing the area, I couldn't just not take a peek inside. Yeah, what's 2 more guns? 4 days after forming the first caravan, the crew of the Wings of Redemption returned to their grav ship, having lost almost all of their simple meals to black mold. It's no secret that the Wings of Redemption is, getting a bit crowded. I mean, for fuck's sake, we're just leaving guns on the floor. To help with this predicament, I added a blueprint for 3 more shelves, along with a simple research bench, chem fuel refinery, and turned the prison cell into a generator room. And just like that, after 29 days of grueling survival space nomadism, the grav ship has power. But it doesn't stop there. Now that we have a research bench, we can get started on learning the science behind solar panels and batteries. You heard that right. Once we get that shit down, we'll just slap a fuckload of Duracells to the back of the ship and we'll be golden. While Brick sat at the table and threw papers around, Ayani sold off some gold and plasteel to an exotic trader in exchange for about 400 silver and more components. If nothing else, it just helped declutter the grav ship a bit more. Oh, and Saraz had 2 porcupine quills surgically removed from her. No idea how she got those, but yeah. And fun fact, I looked this up, and oftentimes they do actually require some form of sedation to remove the quills. That's insane. I never knew that. I thought they just pulled them out. Side tangent aside, day 31 was quiet. Most of the crew mined steel while Brick continued throwing papers around dramatically. On the morning of day 32, though, the crew swapped out the wood-burning stove for an electric one and added chairs to all the major production stations throughout the ship. With that completed, it's time to hunt some muffalo to replenish our food supply. Naturally, it ended with half the fighters crawling back to the ship while the dynamic duo of Brick and Ayani took on and wiped out the remaining Muffalo. I do think it's a bit funny that we're over a month in, and so far the greatest battles of the playthrough have quite literally been against walking blue bison. Needless to say, all of day 33 was spent recovering, since every colonist had sustained severe injuries. Except for Brick, who once again proclaimed himself to be built different and waddled over to his research table to shuffle papers around dramatically. That was until another raid triggered. This one was a bit weird though. Like 5 seconds after the raid kicked off, the group decided to just steal what they could and leave, and all but one of them got the memo. Poor Lily was too busy listening to Call Her Daddy to hear the call, resulting in Patton greeting her with 4 shotgun blasts to the torso, ribcage, and liver. And it turns out, Lily is exactly who we need, with a double passion in mining and a fast learner. The only downsides are her psychopathic tendencies and ambrosia addiction, but hey, who doesn't love a crazy blonde? Am I right, fellas? Since the prison cell was recently converted into a generator room, Ayani got to work building out a small cell in a nearby set of ruins, which would serve as a temporary prison. One thing I've learned with Rimworld as well is that it's generally a good idea to just let your prisoners bleed for a little bit. You can still talk to them and begin converting them while they recover, but they'll be too weak to attempt any breakouts. Look at all that muffalo meat. We'll be set for days. Ideally, I'd like to get started on survival meal research soon, but I think batteries and solar power are much more important at the moment. Did you catch that? Did you see that little text pop up over Brick's head? Plants 4. You know what that means?
Oh no, not the devil's lettuce.
I'm gonna be honest, my sole focus on day 35 was making sure we were able to cook as much of the meat as possible before it spoiled. We don't have a freezer on the ship yet, so the meat only lasts for around 2 days tops, with these simple meals being cooked lasting 4 days. Granted, there are 4 crew members and a prisoner, so we'll be eating at least 10 meals per day going forward. Really what we're running into at the moment is the fact that we've chosen to live out of the Wings of Redemption, instead of just taking a few days to build an outpost to sustain us indefinitely. But once we have a solar panel room and some batteries, we'll be able to build out a freezer, expand the barracks, and even begin upgrading the ship. Day 36 saw Brick completing research on solar panels and immediately starting on batteries. While he focused on that, Patton began placing substructure paneling to add 2 sections onto the ship. In front would be an extra room with plans to either extend production into there, or swap out their production room with the barracks. Either way, there's an added walkway built out to the kitchen. Behind the armory, though, would be enough space for 2 solar panels. These would connect directly to the ship, allowing us to place batteries near the thrusters. Construction continued for several days until finally, on day 40, we were able to complete the expansion. Listen, I know it looks like shit right now. Believe me, I do. And I do have a plan to fix it. I just need more money, or rather, gravlite paneling. Now, there are 2 current ways to obtain it. One is simply crafting it, but that requires Vaxstone, which can only be mined or gathered on asteroids. Since we can't really reach any of those yet, the next best option is to borrow it from some relay stations that just so happen to be heavily guarded by mechanoids. Think of it like killing 2 birds with 1 stone, except instead of birds, you get deathbots from hell, and instead of a stone, you get Brick Tamland and the rest of the anchormen and women. That being said, the finished build would have to wait. The mechanoids had uncovered the crew's location and were preparing a mechanoid invasion, leaving us just a few days to gather any remaining gear from the landing area before we were forced to leave. The following morning, a few random cargo pods crashed nearby, leaving us with 17 fine vegetarian meals. While originally we suspected this to be the mechanoid bait, we were quickly met with the owner free-falling out of the sky and crash-landing next to us. Luckily, they weren't packing any overly severe injuries, so Brick was able to stabilize her, and she even ended up joining the crew after recovering enough to stand. While she can't fight, she is gay, so Netflix and Disney are automatically 20% more likely to pick us up for another episode. All jokes aside, having another doctor/social butterfly/intellectual on the team will be a massive boost. But also, what's with the crew and requiring every member to have high animal skills and a strong passion for it? That's like the 4th member to have that. Of course, it's the one playthrough as well where I'm not trying to build an army of guinea pigs or random zoo pets to ride into battle on. Anyway, we were also able to recruit Lily the following morning. Again, she's kind of everything we need from a crewmate right now, mining level 11 with a double passion. Double passion in social, low passion in medical, and the ability to cook half-decent meals. Speaking of meals, day 43 saw us completing research on packaged survival meals, meaning we don't really need a freezer to add onto the ship anymore, and can solely survive off of the Rimworld version of MREs. The only downside is that packaged survival meals require both protein and vegetation, so we'll need some form of crop or berries to actually craft them. The cooking level 8 being a requirement is more of a non-factor than anything, as long as Ayani doesn't get her face ripped off by a mech, so I'm not all that concerned with it at the moment. Instead, I was more worried about how many jumps it was going to take to reach the mech relay station. With an overheated engine, it's going to take 8 days before we can make another jump, which we'll need to get us as close as possible. Sure, we could just form a caravan and march there, but that would be a 14-day round trip. I don't feel like staring at the caravan screen for an hour while my pawns march through the mountains like they're in Lord of the Rings. Before abandoning the last zone though, we managed to harvest around 35 rice. Assuming no one eats that, we can use some of it to start making survival meals. Worst case, the crew eats it overnight and I just go back to making simple meals until the spring when I can plant another field. Until then though, we'll be relying on berries and hunting. It's not like we'll just be lounging around for 8 days either. We're almost entirely out of chem fuel, so I marked a ton of trees for mass deforestation, which will allow us to convert the lumber into chem fuel. Going back to the pawns eating all the rice real quick though, I did end up changing the food policy to prevent them from eating any more raw food, so going forward it shouldn't be an issue. On top of all of that, it's winter, and we need warm clothing. Turns out one singular space heater in a grav ship just isn't quite cutting it. So instead of spamming additional heaters, I opted to craft a bill for 7 parkas. So here's the current job list. Tomboy is crafting shitty parkas. Patton is hunting caribou, Suarez is harvesting any remaining berry bushes that haven't been killed off by the weather, and Ayani is cooking survival meals. Brick is researching hydroponic basins, and Lily is the grunt hauling all the items around and chopping down trees in her spare time. The following morning, we were greeted with a manhunter pack of great wolves, only for them to rot as soon as they were gunned down. It really wouldn't have mattered even if they were able to be butchered though, considering we were immediately hit with a solar flare and knocking power out for the remainder of the day. Heading into day 46, we detected a massive GravTech energy breach, indicating a hidden mech hive somewhere in orbit. If we can find it, we can either fight to shut it down, or attempt to harness the power for ourselves. So what are mech hives? Well, they're production platforms designed to create mechanoids and control their actions. Think of it like ground zero for hive mind control. Shortly after being bombarded with that news, a moose self-tamed and joined the crew. Normally, I run a mod that allows any animals to be tamed and to be considered pack animals, but since I was playing this during the pre-release phase of the DLC, I was on full vanilla, meaning this moose was ultimately useless to me since it couldn't be tamed and couldn't be used as a pack animal. On the bright side, we did finish off hydroponics research, allowing us to get started on a new research arc unique to Odyssey: fishing. Ideally, that'll be ready by spring because it's something I've wanted in the game for years and I'm really excited to try it out. Building off of day 46, I decided to take a chance on Tomboy and tasked her with taming a warg. Why a warg specifically? Well, because they can be fed with meat so I don't have to have a constant supply of crops for it, and the warg can be trained to attack specific targets and defend, something that'll become incredibly helpful when you consider the fact that Tomboy is a pacifist. It was at this point that I realized, I completely forgot to rename all of my pawns. So, I broke out the YouTube member and Patreon supporter list, threw everyone into the great spinning wheel of names, and ended up with the following. Patton was renamed to Herpaderpa. Ayani was renamed to Hanako. Suarez became Dan But Worse. Tomboy transitioned to Mac Daddy, and Lily became La Grande Pooba. Oh, and the warg? How about pre-launch? This next bit is unrelated, and I'm not sure if this has been in the game for years and I'm just an idiot who never noticed it, but I love that you can see, details such as the pawn's footprints in the snow before they're covered. It's small details like that that make Rimworld one of my all-time favorite games. Day 48 brought up a new predicament. Everyone's bored. So I queued up some tasks, starting with chem fuel refinement. But that only takes one person, so I had 2 more pawns start hunting a bunch of animals such as mega sloths, rabbits, and cougars, with plans to use the meat to continue taming the warg. That afternoon, we finished researching fishing and got started on microelectronics, which will help a ton with fighting mechanoids. While I do have an EMP grenade launcher, it's poor quality, and it'd be way more efficient to have someone with EMP grenades to yeet at them constantly while everyone else walks around with LMGs and shotguns. The next day, I sent Mac Daddy off to tame 2 cougars to join the ranks. Mainly because Mac Daddy needed something to do, but also because how cool would it be to ride a warg into battle with 2 cougar bodyguards tailing you? Not to mention they can be fully tamed, unlike the warg. So not only can they attack and defend, but they can also rescue crew members and haul material around. Keeping true to the trend, I renamed Cougar 1 to fellow member Rylanor. For day 50, we added 2 new small thrusters to the ship. You can only have 4 per grav ship, at least with the current setup, so I'm technically at capacity for now. But on the bright side, they each have a range offset of 10, which means I should have just effectively doubled my ship range. After spending another 5 days training our animals, converting wood into chem fuel, and stockpiling almost 1,000 meat for fine meals, we launched the Wings of Redemption, landing in a new biome directly next to a mech relay. Welcome to the lava fields. It's hard to tell because it's winter, but that is lava. The lava in these biomes can sporadically erupt, damaging the colonists and any buildings. But if you can deal with that, you'll find the soil here permanently enriched with minerals, making it an ideal gardening position. Now that we're just one tile away from the relay station though, all that's left to do is finish research on EMP weapons and continue stockpiling food and supplies. Now, that being said, we're only at about 65% of the way to finishing microelectronics, so I built out a second research table to, in theory, double the research rate. While waiting for that to finish up, the rest of the colonists got to work mining out the components within the caves. With microelectronics finally completed, we can now build a high-tech research bench. So, we can craft EMP weapons now. Well, kinda. We know how to, but we still need a machine bench, and that requires both smithing and machining research, so I did something stupid instead. Now, I could have just waited a few days to get through the research queue, but that's boring. So instead, I just had someone grab the EMP launcher, and then formed a caravan to raid the relay station. After Brick saved another pod crash survivor. So, the relay station. It's guarded by a few mechanoids who should be easy to take out as long as Legrand Pooba can hit her shots. The main targets are the relay stabilizers, which pop up shields over the station. All of them need to be either hacked or destroyed, but the problem is that hacking them takes way longer to accomplish than simply blowing them up. So, before we hack them, we need to kill the mechs. The strategy? Use Pooba to stun the mechs, send in Brick to prevent them from shooting, and then have everyone else volley bullets into them until mission success. And you know what? It worked. Kinda. I mean, Brick got absolutely fucked up, but we killed one. Now thankfully no limbs were lost in the first engagement, so Brick will end up making a full recovery. With the first enemy killed, the crew decided to rest for the night, allowing Brick to heal up a bit more, and allowing the rest of the group to effectively reset before another day of fighting. Just after sunrise on day 59, the group engaged a Scyther. No, not that dope-ass green Pokemon. This guy. Although I'm not sure which is more deadly, to be honest. This time, however, we actually waited for Pooba to land a shot and stun the damn thing, which made killing it exponentially safer. By the time the Scyther had been killed, Brick was able to stand on his own again, so he got to work hacking the first relay stabilizer. But like I said, that takes time. So while he got to work on those, the rest of the team pushed deeper to find another Scyther. Same strategy, same outcome. Now that the area was effectively secured, we could let our guard down and set Mac Daddy to also start hacking the stabilizers. That was, until Brick was detected and locked out, at which point he started smashing the stabilizer, triggering a mech to land and defend the area. Alright, let's try this again. I'm just kidding. Punching is way more effective, even if the outcome is having to fight more mechs. With all the stabilizers destroyed and the mechs killed, all that was left to do was wait an hour for the mechanoid relay to destabilize. After punching it a few times, the thing fell apart, revealing over 150 Gravlite panels and a Grav core. This triggered yet another mech defense raid, with another single mech landing to attack us. Now, seeing just how powerful the EMP launchers are against mechs, I made it my personal mission to finish research as quickly as possible once we got home. Oh, remember Sparkles, that colonist we rescued before heading out? We, may have forgotten to feed her. Poor Sparkles. Anyway, the rest of day 61 was spent recovering after making it back to the ship. A well-deserved day off after the multi-day battle for the relay station. But our journey has just begun. We have 3 more locations marked on the map already. With most of the colonists back on their feet and working on day 62, it's time to begin positioning ourselves for our first flight back to space since the beginning of the playthrough. The abandoned orbital platform is at least 2 jumps away still, so we need to start making progress towards it now, considering we'll need several days in between jumps to prep the ship every time. But enough of that, it's time for fishing. So, you're told which fish are in the water and how many when you hover over it. All you need to do is add a fishing zone, and then set how long to do it for, and the minimum amount of fish to leave in the body of water before stopping. While someone is fishing though, like Hanako for example, they gain XP in the animal skill, making it an incredibly easy way to level out that skill. So while Hanako gets some fishing in, I went ahead and marked a shit ton of berry bushes and heal roots to give us more medical supplies and also stockpile berries for survival meals. Of course, we'll also need some meat, and thankfully, there's a fuckload of deer just hanging out on this map for some reason. What, you don't hunt deer with a light machine gun? Fucking rookie. All of day 63, and I do mean all of it, was centered around food. Nothing too important happened on day 64, aside from finishing off research on smithing. But day 65? Oh, day 65 was also pretty boring. I did finally start on some new ship expansion though. Like, honestly, I don't really have a full outline planned yet, so at least for now, I figured I'd extend the barracks and kitchen section into one even rectangle, while also adding a massive portion on the front to create an actual storage room. The current storage room will eventually be turned into the research room, so that the current research room can be returned to its intended purpose as a production center. It would take until day 67 to wrap up research on machines, after which I got started on prosthetics to hopefully fix Herpaderpa's heart blockage. Over the following days, we wrapped up the new storage area. Again, kinda. As soon as I saw it finished up, I wanted to change it immediately, so I opted to expand the storage area down and then cut the new room in half to serve as the production room. I then took that hallway, removed the upper portion, turned that into the kitchen, and extended the barracks down the full length up to the workshop, before scratching that plan to then add a freezer. That way, I can mass store drugs, medical supplies, and normal meals without worrying about them deteriorating or rotting away in the regular storage area of the ship. Speaking of drugs, I also added a hydroponic basin to begin growing smoke leaf inside. Just, don't tell the space police. Anyway, here's the finished product so far. To add on to the ship expansions, we purchased a second EMP grenade launcher, another vac suit, and a flak vest from a combat supplier, all of which will surely help out in our war against the mechs. After a few more days of waiting around for something amazing to happen, I tried to take off, only to realize that we were over the 500 tile limit on the grav ship. Luckily, we just raided a grounded relay station, so I have the capacity to build out a grav field extender, which does exactly as the name suggests, and extends the ship's building capacity. By default, you have 500 slots, but each grav field extender provides an additional 250 slots, allowing you to massively expand your ship. Another unique addition with the Odyssey DLC is that you can land at abandoned colonies. So in an effort to show that off, I present to you an abandoned colony. All of the buildings are explorable and reminded me a ton of that compound from the beginning of the video. Inside of the first building, we found more supply caches and a crypto sleep casket with a few downed pawns inside. One of which, Owl, even ended up joining the crew. In total, we rescued 3 pawns in the first 2 buildings, and a 4th decided to try and dive bomb our grav ship. Shout out Hamilton. On day 2 of our exploration, we encountered mechs guarding more crypto sleep beds. Inside, we found several pawns, including Latch, Lusa, and Panther. The problem now is that we have too many crew members. Assuming all of them end up joining, we're gonna go from 6 members to 10 in the span of 2 days. Hey, remember how I literally just said, assuming all of them end up joining? Yeah. Anyway, while we waited for the final colonists to recover and join, Brick got to work clearing another building. The only important piece of info that happened on day 78 was that a psychic ship crashed nearby, but at this point all I wanted to do was get the hell out of here. Thankfully, Randy was on our side and allowed the fire from the wreckage to eat into the mechanoids, effectively doing my job for me. Oh, and Lusa snapped and tried to destroy our high-tech research bench, so Brick had to subdue them. This has to be one of the only times in Rimworld where I'm happy a colonist doesn't end up joining me after saving their life. Day 80 saw us expanding the barracks to account for our 3 new crew members. Oh, it's worth noting that we also obtained another EMP launcher while looting the buildings, bringing our total up to 3. So I just gave all 3 new recruits EMP launchers while everyone else held chain shotguns, LMGs, and assault rifles. Except for Brick, who held his breach axe. That afternoon, we were raided by a tribal party who were subsequently gunned down instantly. I mean, they didn't stand a chance. Turns out, when you go into a fight with LMGs, M16s, and an axe-wielding lunatic, you kinda just win. At least against normal pawns. To cap off a solid victory, we finally placed beds for all our new recruits, meaning they'll no longer have to sleep in the rain outside of the ship. Day 81 saw us finishing arguably the most important research task so far. Orbital tech allows us to fully craft vac suits, helmets, and oxygen pumps, all of which are vital to survive out in space. The only problem is that these suits require 20 plasteel each to make, and we currently have 14. Now, thankfully, there's a quarry not too far away from us, so Brick hopped onto the terminal, and together the crew flew to their next zone. Now, originally, I was planning to just fly directly to the quarry, but then I had an idea. What if we took the grav ship and tried to land it on top of an enemy settlement? And it turns out, you can just do that. Gone are the days of using drop pods or forming caravans to send in raiding parties. Now you can simply hop into your grav ship and land on top of an enemy, not only taking them by surprise, but also bringing all of your medical supplies and food with you. Now within moments of landing, I quickly swapped out EMP launchers for assault rifles and had the crew begin pushing in as close as possible to begin raining in bullets onto the colony. Upon seeing us, the tribe just blanket charged us, incapacitating Brick, Legrand Pooba, and Owl, along with Rylanor and Pre-Launch, our Warg and Cougar. Even with several crew members knocked out of the fight though, the tribal warriors were still no match for the overwhelming firepower of our weapons, and began fleeing the area. Now it's time to assess the damage. Brick was bleeding out, but otherwise fine. Same with Legrand Pooba. Owl, however, had her arm sliced off by none other than Panther. Now if that name sounds slightly familiar, allow me to refresh your memory. This has to be one of the only times in Rimworld where I'm happy a colonist doesn't end up joining me after saving their life. It just goes to show you how brutal this world can be. While Owl, Brick, and the rest of the wounded would make a full recovery, we did lose Rylanor, the crew's Cougar. On the bright side, we managed to secure around 50 plasteel on the battlefield alone, along with a shaman merchant strolling in carrying an additional 82 plasteel, meaning we'll now have enough to complete all of our vac suits. While most of the crew recovered or scavenged the battlefield the following morning, Dan was busy going door to door, kicking them off the hinges and looting the entire village. Thankfully, I'd already researched bionic limbs as well, so Latch was already getting started on crafting out a new arm for Owl. In total, we'd walk away with 145 plasteel, like 50 herbal meds, enough food to last a month, and some valuable experience, all at the cost of a cougar and a limb. This continued into day 83 as well, and on day 84, we turned our focus to space preparations. With the current plasteel supply, we can make 7 suits and 7 helmets, which is exactly how much is needed considering we already have 2 vac suits. We also need oxygen pumps in every room, which are 100 steel each, and given that we only have 31 steel currently, it's time to mine. Not to mention we also finished research on normal grav tech, unlocking the ability to make large thrusters and large fuel storage, both of which I'm sure also cost a ton of steel. Just kidding, they actually require Vaxstone, which means I guess it's time to hit up some asteroids. The following morning, Brick was able to perform surgery on Owl, providing her with a new prosthetic left arm. On top of that, we were able to perform surgery to give Herpa a new heart, something that's been on the to-do list for months now. To end the day, I made an effort to continue decluttering the ship by forming a massive caravan and sending the crew off with most of our jade. The hope was I'd be able to trade it all for some more Gravlite paneling, or at least something of similar value. The only pawn I left behind was Latch, so that they could continue working on the vac suits, since they take 800 work to complete per suit. Oh my god. By day 86, we were able to reach a nearby village and turn that jade into some uranium, plasteel, and regular steel, all of which were necessary for expansion. Of course, as soon as I bought 50 uranium, we get a meteor full of it landing literal feet away from the grav ship. We'd pull off one more caravan trade on day 88, selling the rest of our jade, a ton of leather and fur, like, I'm not even kidding, over 2,000 units of it. And in exchange, we walked away with a good steel longsword to replace Brick's axe, a set of steel plate armor, and a set of marine armor. Immediately upon returning to the grav ship, though, we were attacked by another pirate raid. Now, funny enough, they arrived as the caravan did, so they just lined up 1700 style and lit each other up for a few minutes until we won. The best part? One of the raiders, Fitz, didn't even get to fight. He fucking OD'd as soon as the shooting kicked off. That man did so much cocaine to build up to fight that his body just shut down.
It's like winning.
Like, he didn't even take a single bullet to the chest or anything. He just kind of gave up and fell over. I love this game so much. It's time for a sad note, though. Overnight, Mac Daddy snapped and turned wild for some reason, forcing us to turn one of the abandoned buildings into a makeshift prison to get him started on some more tried and true Alex Jones treatment. While that was going on, I went ahead and renamed the colonists to more members. Owl became Ira, so expect them to spontaneously combust at some point. Latch became Beer Oil, and Lusa was renamed to Twister. Sadly, on the morning of day 91, Mac Daddy wandered off to be with her own kind. A massive loss to our crew, but at least she's happy out in the wild now. Aside from that, we finally lifted off into space, landing at an abandoned orbital platform with the hopes of discovering another grav core and some more paneling. In order to survive out here, everyone who leaves the ship needs to be wearing a vac suit and vac helmet, but unfortunately, we don't have enough yet. So, I prioritized handing them out to the OGs of the crew first, leaving behind Ira, Beer Oil, and Twister to guard the ship or sub in as needed. The only way into the station is through a series of blast doors. These seem to be only accessible through hacking them. Now, as soon as we tried to enter through one, though, we were greeted with 2 turrets aimed directly at the front door. Thankfully, we're a well-trained unit, so 2 turrets aren't much of an issue. Especially when you've got Brick Tamlin just tanking gunfire. With the entrance secured, the raiding party returned to the Wings of Redemption for the remainder of the night. The next morning, we encountered hunter drone traps and roaming sentry drones guarding the facility. There's also a hackable security terminals littered throughout, but only Brick can hack them since he's the only one with high enough intelligence. So where is Brick, you might ask? Well, he's busy wandering the halls aimlessly and hurling insults at anyone in his way. Now, we were able to find the grav engine relatively easily, but I didn't want to start destroying it until we'd looted the rest of the compound first. As we continued pushing deeper into the facility, we took severe damage from the insane amount of turrets positioned throughout the hallways. At each bend, it felt like we were having to send another crew member back to the ship to recover, and before we knew it, we were down to just 2 members. With only Dan and Hanako remaining, Hanako stepped into a small, dimly lit room and was immediately swarmed by a hunter and wasp drone. The hunter drone exploded on impact, incapacitating Hanako, leaving Dan to perform life-saving surgery on the floor of the room. It's here where Dan has what I can only describe to be the most selfless and heroic moment of the playthrough thus far. After bandaging Hanako up and saving their life, he throws her over his shoulder and begins making his way back through the station. As he did so, though, a sentry drone noticed them and began firing off shots, hitting Dan in the back. But the man just kept moving. carrying Hanako through the labyrinth of corridors and storage rooms, making his way out onto the platform, all the while taking bullet after bullet. Once he reached the platform, though, he dropped Hanako and turned to face the sentry drone head-on. The two would exchange gunfire as Hanako attempted to crawl away. Hearing the gunfire on the platform, Brick, determined to not relive his past mistakes, sprinted out to join the fight, ultimately striking down the sentry drone with his longsword. Dan, while suffering from extreme blood loss and malnutrition, would ultimately recover. What a goddamn hero. Needless to say, the rest of day 93 was spent recovering on board the Wings of Redemption. Day 94 picked up exactly where the previous day left off, with more suicide bomb drones. This time, Brick would be the recipient. His left arm would be torn clean off his body in the explosion, taking him entirely out of the fight. At the same time, Herpaderpa would also sustain severe injuries due to the Wasp Swarm. The fight lasted into the morning hours of day 95, at which point the crew once again retreated back to the Redemption to recover. At this point, food supplies were running low, and we wouldn't be able to survive up here longer than another day or two. We needed to act fast, take what we could, and leave. So while the wounded stayed back, Ira and Puba pushed in, securing 73 Vaxstone that could be used for large thrusters. Day 96 would be our last day on the Orbital platform, or so I had hoped. We're on the last day of food, everyone's wounded, and staying here any longer only further increases the risk of losing everyone. So after a good night's rest, almost the entire crew moved back in and began hacking the security terminals. Now funny enough, these do things like reprogram the turrets and open the blast doors. All shit that would have been amazing had Brick not been so focused on yelling insults at people. Honestly, a lot of this bloodshed could have just been avoided had I taken the time to look into this more, but given the DLC hasn't even released at the time of recording this, I think going into this completely blind with no guides is good enough. That being said, I still have absolutely no clue as to how to defend against hunter traps, and unfortunately, due to my incompetence, Herpaderpa would have his torso, liver, and left kidney completely shredded in a blast, killing him instantly. Pressing forward, the crew encountered another crypto-sleep casket room, only to once again be ambushed. But this time, we were ready for it, easily killing 2 of the 3 attackers and subduing the 3rd. After a quick look at his stats, we decided it'd be sufficient to take him prisoner and to recruit him to the crew, so I turned the workshop into a makeshift prison and had Beer Oil bring him back. only for Beer Oil to then accidentally kill him in the process. Regardless, it's time to blow up the grav engine. To do this, I grabbed a ton of explosives from around the ship, moved them to up against the engine, and sparked them. Apparently, I wasn't supposed to do that though, because all it did was dissolve the damn thing into nothingness, leaving me empty-handed. I was so annoyed by this that I wasn't paying attention when sending the crew into another room, causing Beer Oil to eat a drone to the liver, killing him instantly as well. Not only was this all for nothing, but it came at the cost of now 2 of my best soldiers. This sent the crew into mass hysteria. Dan went on a murderous rampage and had to be beaten unconscious. Ira walked around in a daze. Hanako trashed the ship during a tantrum, and Le Grand Puba went berserk, walking through the platform looking for anything to kill. In honor of Herpaderpa and Beer Oil, we constructed 2 uranium caskets on board the ship, and gave them an honorable funeral. One thing I thought was really cool about the burial though, was the fact that engraved onto Herpaderpa's casket was the portrayal of his final moment, as a hunter drone ended his life. A bit morbid, but it's just another small detail that makes me love this game that much more. The following morning, we looted the platform for anything of value before saying our goodbyes and launching the Wings of Redemption back towards the planet below. I picked out a nice temperate forest location that would allow everyone to recover peacefully. We could tame new animals, recruit new crew members, and begin rebuilding our food supply. So what's next for our crew of anchormen and women? The mechs are still out there, and they're growing in both strength and numbers. Eventually, we'll need to bring the fight to them, but for now, we're just focused on recovering and grieving. Thank you all so much for watching. I had originally intended this video to be a massive, multi-hour exploration journey showcasing an entire playthrough, but I only had about 3 days to get a video out before the embargo lifted, so this was all I had time for. Now that being said, I'll be continuing this playthrough live on stream today and Friday of this week, so be on the lookout for that. I'll have both streams linked in the description and up on screen in a few seconds. If you're not interested in the streams, don't worry, I'll end up turning all of that into one big video when the playthrough is finished. Whether that be with Brick Tamlin's death, or finally defeating the Mechanoids. Who knows? Last but not least, I wanted to give a very big thank you to the team over at Ludeon Studios. Some of my very first videos on this channel were Rimworld based, so I'm honored to even be considered for the pre-release access to the DLC content. It's something I try not to take for granted, and I honestly think this is one of, if not my favorite DLC for the game yet. With that though, I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate you all, go call a loved one, and thanks for stopping by.